Awesome. Well, thank you for listening to the explanation of what Bloom's taxonomy is. Now, if everyone could take a moment and just think about what level of Bloom's taxonomy you think you're currently operating at. Reflect on how you've been studying for classes and what you've been doing to prepare, and think about where that actually fits on the Bloom's taxonomy. And then take a moment to write that down on the piece of paper in front of you. Awesome. Now I would like everyone to take another moment and think about what level do you need to be operating at to be successful in college. Where should students typically be at on the Bloom's level of taxonomy to be successful in college? Take another moment and write down what you think on your piece of paper in front of you. Could I have 3 students share what they are thinking for this question? Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I definitely think the book concurs with that. We need to kind of get to that higher order of thinking on Bloom's taxonomy for students to really understand concepts and be able to relate them to other areas and other courses that they're studying. So the big question then becomes, how do we get students to transition from the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy to the higher ones? One of the strategies cited is the study cycle. Can I have a show of hands of anyone that's heard of the study cycle? Okay, so a couple people. For those of you who have not, the study cycle involves kind of this 5-step approach to courses, right? So the 5 steps are outlined here on this illustration, and the first one is to preview, second, attend class, third, review, fourth, intense study sessions, and 5, assess. Previewing looks like looking at the chapter notes before class, seeing if there's any Canvas slides already posted on class. This is where you really want to make sure you're looking over the readings for the course as well. It's really, really important to kind of take those 10 minutes before class and make sure you're just anticipating and able to figure out what's going to happen in class, so you're getting your mind ready and really previewing what that course content's going to be. The second part is to actually attend class. I know oftentimes professors include their lectures online, and so students can go back and reflect on them later. Some students view that as an option to not attend class, but please, 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 going to class is the most important part of this whole cycle that you could do. Attending class gives you a chance to ask questions, talk to your peers, and really try to interact with that course content. So make sure you're taking the time to do that. And take good notes while you're in class as well. You'll really need those as you're moving forward with the study cycle. So the third step is to review. Immediately after class, or as soon as possible after class, look at your course notes. Fill in any gaps or any questions that you may have about the notes you took. Anything you don't understand, maybe make a note of that you need to get clarification on later. The sooner you can do this after class, the better. If you have another class immediately after, then try to as soon as possible, as soon as you have a moment, maybe spend those 10 to 15 minutes really reviewing your notes after class and any of the lecture material that you think would be helpful. Make any clarifications that you're unsure of, and those types of things during that time as well. The fourth step is an intense study session. Intense study sessions should happen 3 to 4 times daily, and so these are short kind of bursts of studying sessions, really intended on looking at the why, the how, and the what of the course content that you're looking at. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see kind of an outline for what an intense study session could look like. The first thing you'll want to do is set a goal for that session. The second is really kind of interacting with the material, and that's the bulk of your time. And so this can look like organizing the material, creating a concept map, maybe summarizing the content, rereading things that were confusing, again, looking over those notes and filling in blanks or reflecting. The third step in an intense study session is definitely to take a break. You may need a moment here and there to just take a break so that you can come back refreshed. And then the last step would be to review, go over the things you just studied, make sure they're really in your brain and that you're able to really recall them next time you look. This slide, I realize, kind of outlines what that looks like in somewhere between an hour, hour and a half, but the text also says doing that for 20 to 25 minutes is an ideal amount of time. So the more time you can interact with the content, those short 20 to 25 minutes, 3 to 5 times a day is going to be really, really beneficial. Next, the final step is to really assess your learning. And what this looks like is having general regular self check-ins with where you're at on the course content. This could be quizzing yourself with practice problems. This could be using homework as a quiz like we talked about earlier, and really taking the time to assess where you're at with the course content, because you may feel really good about the course content, but if you're not assessing your learning, you're not able to see where there's maybe any weak points in your understanding of the content as well. So now I would like you to take a couple minutes, and I really want you to think about how you can incorporate the study cycle into your tutoring sessions. So how do you get tutees to kind of look at the study cycle and maybe add parts of it to their current routine? And so spend the next 5 minutes drafting with your partner a plan for how you can incorporate these strategies into your tutoring session. Awesome. So thank you for taking the time to kind of come up with that draft and that plan. Is there any chance I can get a group or so to share their thoughts with a larger class? Great. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a really great discussion. I know a lot of times students don't look at the textbook and think about even reading the text before class, let alone at least spending the 10 minutes before class skimming it. And most people do have those 10 minutes in the morning or so that they feel that they can do that with. And so I think really talking to your tutees about using that 10 minutes before class wisely instead of just surfing their phone and whatnot, I think that's definitely a great plan as well. And I really liked the fact that you're talking to your tutees about doing short, intense study sessions 3 to 5 times throughout the day. The more they're interacting with the material, the more I think that's going to be beneficial for them as well. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So now that we've kind of talked about what the study cycle looks like, we can also bring up more additional effective metacognitive strategies. Teaching students how to learn text outlines these 10 strategies that students can use to kind of to benefit their studying, and we have talked about a couple of them through the study cycle, but I want you to guys, before we kind of dive into this, to spend a couple minutes really thinking about how you study and how you prepare for your courses. So on the sheet of paper in front of you, please kind of draft a couple bullet points of what you really do to prepare for your classes. Awesome. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Can you turn to the person next to you and share your list and talk about what similarities and what differences you have on your list of how you prepare for your courses? Awesome. We'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. Great. So now that you have these lists, let's really dive deep into these 10 metacognition skills that the Teaching Students How to Learn Text talks about. So the first one is previewing. Again, this is similar to what we talked about with the study cycle. This is the 10 minutes before class. You're really going through the course text, finding headers, bold words, italics, charts, and things, and making sure you understand what the lecture or what's going on in that section of the course content. Preparing for active reading. This is when you, again, have looked at those headers and bolded parts of the text, and you're really making sure your brain is looking for kind of what's going on in that text as a result of those bolded words. You can come up with questions based on kind of those bolded words or those italics. So as you're reading, you're really trying to figure out an answer to those questions. It gives your brain something to focus on. Paraphrasing, this involves kind of taking a couple sentences and rewriting them in a one-sentence synopsis. This is great for doing in the margins of books or on papers, so you really get the chance to kind of create a small summary of what that chapter is about. Reading actively, so this can involve creating flashcards, concept maps, highlighting and creating any additional questions you received from the text, and then using the textbook. As we've said, the first 4 are pretty much about reading. The 5th one is actually making sure that you are using the textbook. Some courses don't require the textbook, but always make sure you buy it, even if it's recommended, and you definitely take an active chance at using it. The 6th item is going to class and making sure you take notes by hand. Again, this was a big part of the study cycle as well. The seventh, we've brought this one up already as well, using the homework as a way to assess your learning and really not solving the homework using the study guide or using the example guide, and just taking this as an opportunity to assess where you're at with the course content. Number 8, and this is a really great one, teaching the material to other students or a pretend audience. Just taking the time to actually teach the material out loud really helps you fill in and figure out where there are gaps in your understanding as well. Number 9 is working in groups or pairs. Anytime you can work with somebody else and have to explain things to them and they explain things back to you, it really shows, again, kind of where you need to focus on in understanding. And then the 10th one is creating practice exams. This makes you think about kind of what the exam could look like and what the course content could look like in a question. So now that we've briefly talked about these 10 metacognitive strategies, look back on the list that you created a few moments ago and underline any of the items on your list that kind of align with these 10 metacognitive strategies. And then as a second part, take a couple minutes to add to your list anything you think would be really useful for right now. And then we'll have you share your results out with your partner.